breaking news. This is not fair. Donald Trump rages at EU leaders ahead of NATO summit in Brussels. Donald Trump has sent a furious warning to the EU and NATO ahead of a crunch summit in Brussels this week, saying the military alliance benefits Europe far more than the United States and demanding the bloc contributes more. The US president laid into his allies over their military spending on the eve of the NATO summit, which is likely to raise concerns about the future of the 28-member coalition. Donald Trump has repeatedly hinted he may withdraw U.S. support for NATO altogether, calling it obsolete and a waste of American taxpayers' dollars. He said many countries were nowhere close to their commitment to spend 2% of GDP on defense. Writing on Twitter, he said, "The United States is spending far more on NATO than any other country. This is not fair, nor is it acceptable. While these countries have been increasing their contributions since I took office, they must do much more. Germany is at 1%, the US is at 4%, and NATO benefits." He also again attacked Brussels for having a trade surplus with the US, adding big trade barriers on US goods. No. Germany is also under pressure from Mr. Trump to pay its fair share as, according to NATO statistics, it only spends 1.2% of GDP on defense, considerably less than the 2% mutually agreed by the alliance's member states. The Republican firebrand leader added, "Europe far more than it does the US by some accounts. The US is paying for 90% of NATO, with many countries nowhere close to their 2% commitment." On top of this, the European Union has a trade surplus of $151 million with the US, with big trade barriers on US goods. No. The strongly worded rant is the latest criticism of NATO by Mr. Trump and will set the ball rolling for a tense showdown with EU leaders on Wednesday. The defense alliance already relies heavily on Washington for around 3/4 of its funding. In Europe, many still do not meet the 2% of GDP target set by NATO, although Britain does. Relations between Brussels and Washington are already at an all-time low after the U.S. leader slapped tariffs on steel and aluminium EU goods. It comes after a think tank warned Britain needs to increase defense spending by 50% to convince Trump to continue to back NATO. Think tank Policy Exchange said there is no viable successor to NATO as guarantor of European security.